Hi, my name is Jordan and this is my wife Brita. We've been attending Forest Grove for a little over 6 years now. We originally started coming because of some mutual friends, but quickly became involved in small groups, Alpha, as well as Grove Kids. We're very thankful to have made Forest Grove our church home. I'm currently working as a project manager here in Saskatoon, and Brita works as a teacher, but is currently on maternity leave.
The last year and a half of our life has been quite an emotional roller coaster. We've experienced the most joy we've experienced, as well as the deepest grief, with losing our first daughter when I was 32 weeks pregnant, and we didn't know why we lost her.
After not feeling the baby move for a little while, we headed to the hospital where they confirmed our worst fears, that there was no heartbeat and that we had lost the baby at about 32 weeks pregnant. So after about 48 hours of induced labor, Brita gave birth to our first baby girl, Sophie Hope, who was born on July 10th, 2020.
Leaving the hospital without Sophie was truly heartbreaking because she felt just so perfect in our arms, and it was heartbreaking then, and it still is heartbreaking knowing that we didn't get to bring her home.
Coming home from the hospital set off the practical reality of coming home to a house that was ready to welcome a baby, but unfortunately we were unable to. This set off the journey of navigating through grief and trying to process through that together. And it was definitely the start of a difficult season of life for both of us.
After about 3 months after we lost Sophie, we found out that I was pregnant again, which was a huge answer to prayer. That triggered tons of emotions, from a lot of hope, but so much fear, as well as still trying to process the recent trauma that we've experienced, and all while trying to comfort each other through the grief process and hopefully welcoming another baby soon.
And after 9 long months, we were very excited to meet Savannah Ruby, who has been with us here now for about five or 6 months, and she's been letting up her home ever since.
Throughout the last year and a half, I have learned so much. First and foremost, I've learned to trust God and His Word. The verse Romans 8:18 was shared with me by a number of friends, which reads, "The pain you are experiencing is nothing compared to the joy that is coming." And that is a verse that I held on to throughout my pregnancy with Savannah, because I knew that I could trust God, that joy was coming, but I didn't know if that joy would be Savannah or not. Learning to trust God has just been so huge in this journey. I've learned to trust the relationships that He's given to me, and He's allowed me to trust that it's okay to be vulnerable with others. It's okay to be vulnerable, and that leads to deep relationships, which are huge in the processing of the grief that we've been dealing with. God has given us just so many people in our community that I'm so grateful for, and I'm grateful that He put them in our life, both from family and friends, as well as our church community. I've experienced God's love and care in so many ways. The best way that I can describe it is that God walks with us in the tension of two extremes, from the most joy to the deepest grief, and He walks with us as we are transitioning through that. God has been with us as we have welcomed both of our daughters, and both of those daughters have given us a lot of joy and so much sadness with losing Sophie. God's presence was so strong when we were in the hospital and I delivered a stillborn baby. But He gave me an indescribable amount of peace as I got to hold her in my arms, and an indescribable amount of love. I feel God's strength and presence every day as I get to watch Savannah grow, and it's amazing that He can be with us as we experience the highs and lows and the joy and grief, and learning that it's okay to feel both the highs and the lows and the grief and the joy at the same time is something that I've learned and that God has given me. I've experienced God's love by feeling God's presence as He gave us peace in the hospital where we experienced trauma. He has the ability to turn a place of grief and trauma into a place where we experience so much love, peace, the comfort of healthcare workers and their kindness, and that's just an undescribable feeling that we had in the hospital that I can only attest to God.
As I reflect on the past 18 months, one thing that stands out so clearly that I feel like I've learned is just the power of prayer and the tangible experience that has led to, just in terms of peace. While we were still in the hospital, word quickly got out about the loss of Sophie, and although we maybe didn't hear from a lot of people, we knew they were praying. And as I think back to that time, it's hard to describe, but again, it's just one of the most tangible experiences, I think, of prayer that I've really ever experienced, just in terms of the amount of peace that we were able to feel in that situation, in the moment when there shouldn't be much peace. I can so vividly remember just feeling a sense of calm, and that God was in control of the situation, even though we had a lot of questions and there was a lot of unknowns. So that's certainly one thing that I really remember learning, and certainly that stands out as I reflect on this. As I think about God's love and care through this season, there's a number of ways that His love has shone through. One is certainly through Brita. I have great respect and admiration for the way that she has handled this, both in processing her own grief, but then also supporting me through that. I truly believe God's love has shone through Brita, both for myself and others as she's handled this. And I know He's walking alongside us in that. So another way that I felt God's love and care is just through the simple acts of kindness of others, both from friends and family and extended community, but also just the medical professionals that were with us in the hospital. It's definitely not lost on me how such simple acts of kindness can be, again, God's love showing through, and it was certainly an encouragement to me in those moments. The last thing that Brita and I definitely just want to share, and how we experienced God's love through this time, was so strongly through community. God's love shone so deeply through, again, close family and close friends, but even the broader community. We know that there was people praying, and again, that doesn't go unnoticed. We've felt that as we've talked about, and the power of community has just been so strong. For us, we both feel like this was such a huge encouragement for us, has led us to want to be intentional with community as well, and again, is just a reminder for us that the community that you are journeying with, whatever side of, I guess, the coin you're on, is just such an encouragement to us. I think the last thing we want to say is just thank Forest Grove for the opportunity to share our story and to share Sophie with you all. This is our journey and a part of it, and we just hope that some sliver of it can be an encouragement to someone, but also just that we can all rest assured in the hope of what is to come.